Hey guys, it's Commodore Sam coming to you again from LA. If you don't know where LA is, that's Lower Alabama. That might explain my accent. But anyway, today we're going to look at the next drive in our drive reproduction series, and that's going to be the CMD HD disk drives. Way back in the 90s, CMD came out with their CMD hard drive. Had various sizes, of disks inside of those. They were all SCSI drives inside. So basically, the hard drive consisted of a SCSI controller that would function with the serial port. Also, it would work in conjunction with the RAM link, and you would be able to hook that up to your 64 and have a tremendous amount of space for the time. So what we're going to look at today is specifically the Core i64 reproduction of the CMD HD, the HD-4000. Now, physical aspects of it are very similar, very true to form to the originals. Now, of course, a little bit of Core i64's style, if you will, in all black, which kind of matches the FDs. But back in the day, they were typically looked more similar to this, a white, beige, off-white color with a black label and a white label in the back. And so this is the Core i60, the Core i64's HD-4000. These are available for sale now, but I'm going to go into a few of the features. One of the things that I wanted to point out that is a little bit of an advancement, in my opinion, over the original ones, is one, there's no spinning disc in here. So most people today, if you had an original, you have replaced they have replaced the spinning SCSI hard drive that come inside of these with one of several SCSI drive emulators, looking more like this. This happens to be a Zulu SCSI. The ones that Core i64 produce have the blue SCSI in them. And again, I prefer that. So I mentioned the fact that these drives hook to your computer into your 64 or your 128 via the serial port. And so if you look at back here on this drive, you've got the normal two serial ports that you see on most Commodore disk drives. You have an auxiliary port, which has never been used. It was in the original equipment, so and CMD never got to the point of using that anybody knows of. But true to form, Core i64 reproduced this with the same port on it. Maybe one day somebody will actually create something that can be used with that. And then of course it has the normal parallel, the normal power cable here that a lot of the Commodore drives use, both the 5 and the 12 volt power round in 4-pin power supplies. And then this other big port is something that only came on 2 different devices that CMD made. This is for hooking up via parallel to a RAM link. And so therefore you get a parallel connection because the RAM link plugs into the cartridge port. I'm sure most of you know what a RAM link looks like, but it looks like this, and on the back here you've got this parallel connection here, and it uses a 14-pin cable, a 14-pin cable that looks like this, and the same one that the Atari, some of the Atari disk drives use, the Atari ST, I think. I'm not an Atari expert, but anyway, this cable was common amongst that. But it's a 14-pin DIN that creates a parallel connection between a RAM link and a CMD HD drive. Significantly better speeds, but even if you don't have a RAM link, and even if you don't have a parallel cable to connect them, the serial access, because it has Jiffy DOS built into it, or CMD's operating system built into it, it works pretty fast and is still a great device, even if you don't have a RAM link connected. That being said, if you've got a keen eye, one of the things that I have on my CMD HD is I actually have a SD adapter coming to the outside of the device. Now, normally on a CMD HD drive, this right here would be a 25-pin SCSI port. You could, back in the day, you could hook external SCSI drives to the outside of your CMD HD and have additional storage, additional things like you could put a zip drive when zip drives came out, the SCSI version of the zip drive, not the parallel port version, but the SCSI version of the zip drive. You could have the another SCSI hard drive external sitting along with this, and CMD would interface with that. In today's world, when we're loading Zulu SCSIs and Blue SCSIs and SCSI to SD, all these SCSI emulators that are available, they of course have an SD card in them. Internal, and a lot of people use these internally, or inside the drive here, and they never swap out that SD card, and if you wanted to swap out the SD card, or for whatever reason to make a backup or to put a different configuration in the drive, whatever, you would actually have to open up the screws of the case and take take the cover off to get to that SD drive. Well, what Core i64 has done is they've got a SD extension that plugs into that internal slot in the card and brings it out here to the back of the drive. Now, if you're like me, I have no use for a zip drive plugged into my Commodore 64. I have no use for an external hard drive. In a lot of cases, those were used for the purpose of backing up what they had on their system anyway. And so in today's world, in large storage, if I've got a removable SD card, why do I need that? Okay, why do I need some external other external device on there? Now, if you want to, you can, and Core i64 sells these with the normal 25-pin port. That's the way it originally was when he came out with that. But I like this option, so this is an option. Now, if you look inside of here, all I did was take the DB25 out of this hole, and it's inside just folded up, away from everything, so that it could be returned back to, quote, normal. But I prefer it this way, and we're going to get into why, and I'll show you some of what I feel like is the nicer reason to have this exposed SD card. let's see. I'm trying to think. Is there anything? I'm not going to cover all the normal HD functions of a CMD HD. There's plenty of videos out there for that. But feel free to leave me a comment if you have a question about it, or want to make a comment about something that I've said. I'm certainly not the foremost expert on the subject, right? And so anyway, let's dive in and just take a look at a couple of more things. Okay, guys, I've got my HD hooked back up in my normal configuration. Again, I've got this set as drive 12. One thing that I wanted to point out here is a little bit of the differences between the way in my previous video we looked at the file management on the GFD-4000, and of course many of you will know what the file management on the SD to IEC looks like, or the UIEC in this particular case. You know, that those modern storage devices and the way that you put various files, like on the UIEC or SD to IEC devices, you put the D64s or the D81s on those on the SD card, just thrown into the folder, and you of course can manage all of those individual files. Same thing with the GFD-4000. You put those D81s or the other formats, those actual individual disk images, you put that onto the USB drive. You know, see my other videos for that. The HD is a little bit of a different animal. It's more of an emulation, again, with that Zulu SCSI or that Blue SCSI. It's emulating a SCSI drive, and so therefore you don't have this idea of, normally don't have this idea of swapping out disk images. So there's a difference in the way that it works here. So just to kind of point that out, and not to be silly about it, I just wanted to point out that if I go into if I issue the command to make 12 my default here, and I hit a directory, I'm sitting in a particular partition inside of this HD. That partition inside of the that's like a hard drive partition. That partition in the HD and on the SCSI emulator is, I happen to be sitting in my default partition of partition 2, and this happens to be 64 OS in that partition, and I can run these programs just like I would off of any disk. Use my up arrow or slash commands, or do a load with the drive letter. All those normal disk functions work the same with the CMD HD as they do with any other type of disk drive that you have. Now, talking about those partitions, normally if I want to list a directory on a drive, I can either do load $, comma whatever drive number, or in the case of Jiffy DOS, I can hit the F1 key and it'll display the directory, or I could type in the @ command to display the directory. But if I want to see the directory of the partitions, and this works on Jiffy DOS, no matter, with any device that has partitions. If I want to view the partitions, I do kind of the similar in that I do a $, but instead I follow it with an =P, and I hit enter there. And this will show me all the partitions that I have on this hard drive. And you see I have partition 0, which is a system that's always there. And then 1 and 2 partitions are what I am using as far as the which partitions are available to be used. Now, on the CMD HD, you can have up to like 255 or 254 partitions. It'll go up to number 254, but it starts with 0, so 255. But anyway, so you get 255 partitions, but I can only be on one of those partitions at a time. Now I can jump partitions, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. But there's a configuration utility, and again, I'm not going to get into all of that, but there's a configuration utility to set up each one of those partitions. Each one of those partitions can be either a native partition like these two here, or they could be a partition that is emulating a 1541, a 1581, you know, all the different disk sizes. It can emulate that partition can be set up exactly like that. And again, you can have up to 255 of those. Now, if I want to change partitions, if I want to change my default partition, what partition it comes on when I turn it on, that is also in a configuration in the CMD configuration HD tools that's available for that, to set that default. But I can also change. So the command to change partitions in JiffyDOS is the @cp command, and then you just put in what partition you want to go to, and then of course and it changes to that partition. And if I hit F1 again, I'm going to see what's in that partition. Now, inside that partition, you know, you can have the typical directories. So go in further to the directories. If you know, you can run straight. You know, you can have straight programs sitting in the directory as well. So, for example, if I wanted to go into one of these folders here that are a directory. So to change partitions, I did the cp command, and that gets me into this partition, to whichever partition inside the partition directory. But if I want to change into directories in a file system, a file system directory, I guess you would say, then I would use the @cd command, and I could you know, put in any of these. So but what I can do is I can just go up here to these directory. I could issue the command, or I can come up here and do an @cd / and colon enter, and now I'm sitting in the HD utils directory. And again, I could run any of these individual programs from there. So those are all the JiffyDOS commands. I'm not going to, you know, you can research all the JiffyDOS commands and how you navigate inside of the partition structure, the directory structure that exists inside of a CMD HD. Oh, and also FD. FD has a lot of those same partitioning type scenarios. But what I want you to see is I've got all these programs, I've got all these partitions, I've got all these directories. But what does it look like actually on the SD card of my CMD HD? So let's look at that next. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken the SD card out of the back of the CMD HD hard drive. And I've inserted it here into my Windows computer. Now what you'll notice is that we've got three files here, okay? We have an hd0.img and an hd1.img. So when you set up the Zulu SCSI or a Blue SCSI, you basically have, you start off with an image file of a certain size, and it can be up to 4 gigs large. Basically, the system, the limit, if you will, in the Commodore world and the CMD world is really what expanded it even to this limit. The limit is 4 gigs. Now, in the world of SCSI, you can have various drive device numbers, and they can, I can't remember the limit, but it's a good size limit. I think that the CMD would allow up to 6 because the SCSI controller itself was number 7. And so I believe that was the limit, but I'm not. Don't quote me on that one. But it was a limit of drives. Now the SCSI emulators can also emulate multiple device numbers, and that's what you're seeing here with these HD1 and HD0 and the HD1. So you could have multiple image files inside of the on that SD card, and the SCSI, Zulu SCSI and Blue SCSI would support those. Now, does that do you any good on a CMD drive? Not really, because you have that upper limit of the 4 gigs, and you're going to be stretched to fill that anyway. And so I don't think there is a use for that. Now, I've got one. I'd put this one here. I don't normally use this, but I put it here just for the purpose of demonstration, to show you how you can actually use that. You could break down and say, okay, you could have an HD0 at 1 gig and an HD1 at 1 gig. So you could have 4 different image files all at 4 gigs, and CMD would support that, and you could theoretically load those in as use the HD tools that comes with CMD to actually add those additional drives. So you could break it down that way, but why would you? So it's much easier just to have one HD0 image at 4 gigs. Now, what can I do with this? So one of the things that you'll see very quickly is that I don't have individual D64s or individual D81s or any of the other larger formats. I don't have those. I just have one file that the Zulu SCSI or the Blue SCSI understands to be the hard drive. And it stores everything inside that one file. The whole 4 gigs of space is all in that one file. All those partitions, all those directories, all in that one file. Now that has its pluses and its minuses. A minus is I can't really easily navigate inside of this. I haven't explored maybe trying to use Vice and using a virtual hard drive or any of those things. So it may be possible, and I'd like to explore that, but I have not explored that. So maybe some of you out there have, and you want to throw in a comment of how you can do that. I'd love to learn. But the reason I love the SD card being able to be taken out of the CMD HD is I can come in here and I can just copy that one file, and it's a backup. And I can have iterations of that. So I can have a backup for every day. I could have a backup for once a week, once a year, whatever. I could have a backup of different configurations. I can also have multiple SD cards. I don't have to stay on the same SD card. So I could have one SD card that is all of my programming stuff. If I was someone writing programs and I wanted to keep that safe, I could have that separate. I could have an SD card that was configured for all my games. And so I didn't, if I didn't want my games and my programming stuff to exist on the same SD card, I could do that. A lot of different options. And again, I can keep copies. Now a good example, just the other day, I had, I created a file somehow accidentally, and I don't remember what I was testing at the time. But I created a file that had a real funky name to it, had spaces and characters and everything else in it. And none of my tools would delete that strange file that I had accidentally created via the actual Commodore 64, not because I was messing with it on a PC. It was a problem I had with a Commodore 64 program. Could not get it deleted because I could not type anything that would represent the file name to be able to delete it or scratch it. Tried a couple of tools, couldn't do that. But so what could I do? I easily went back to my HD image and just restored my image, and I had my whole hard drive back the way that it was right before I started tinkering. And so if you treat it that way, you can very much have backups and never lose your data. Another thing to consider is we all, if you don't know, SD cards do go bad. And so, if you got your SD card sitting internal inside of your inside of any device using SCSI or your SD to IEC, I don't care what it is, not having a backup of your SD card is not a good thing, because they do go bad. They will go bad. They also only allow so many writes before they're done. They have a lifespan. No different than a hard drive. I would submit to you that probably these SCSI drives that we've taken out of these CMD HDs that originally existed in there, a lot of those still work today, 40 years later or 30 years later. So I submit to you that a well-used SD card probably doesn't last that as long as those drives did. So it's a little bit of but I can easily replace and copy those SD cards, and so it's up to us to make sure that we protect our data. So anyway, SD cards are great. So I'm not downplaying SD cards over spinning disks. What I am saying is keep a backup. Always back up and the best way to back it up is to have it to where you can take it out and back it up without having to take the drive, open up the drive. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to show you. Just if you might be wondering what this log.txt file is here, that's a file that Blue SCSI creates that shows the its boot up sequence. It just logs its boot up sequence. And allows you to in that boot up sequence, it tells you everything that was happening as it was loading in everything. So when it was booting up, that log file, if you ever do experiment with image files, can let you know what kind of problem you're having. When in the early days when I was setting up my Zulu SCSI and I was creating my own hard disk image, it took me a few tries to learn how to properly create those image files. And so luckily, if you buy one from Core i64, the image file will already be created for you. And it usually puts some utilities on it as the HD tools on it as well. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to show you guys, is just being able to come right here and say, okay, I'm going to take this file, I'm going to go and I'm going to hit copy, and I can copy that and save it off on my hard drive, on my Windows hard drive, in my cloud storage or whatever, and I can keep a copy of that. So it's really a great advancement in hardware over and above the original CMD HD. So I really highly recommend it, and it is. I said before, the GFD4000 is probably my favorite device. My second favorite device is certainly the CMD HD, and then followed by that's the RAM Link. So to watch some future videos, we're gonna cover the RAM Link. We're gonna cover SD to IEC in later episodes, and a couple of other different ones. So thanks, guys. I'll turn around here again, and I appreciate you tuning in. Please join me in future videos, but leave some comments. But if you've got something constructive on or informational on the CMD HD and the Blue SCSI and some of that, maybe being able to read these HD files from a PC to add files on there, that would be kind of cool. I demonstrated you can do that on the GFD, which is something I really like. Anyway, thanks for joining. See you on the next video.